Hi guys, welcome to another video. So today's topic is, how do I feel when people stare at me? So I get a lot of stares for a lot of different reasons. Some people stare at me because of my wheelchair, or they'll notice my crutch, or they'll see my feeding tube, or depending on what I'm wearing, or if I have to check on my feeding tube for something, if they see my feeding tube, or my port is accessed and they see my port, or they see my infusion bag, or I go to pull out my feed bag for something, whether it's beeping or anything. Especially I got a lot of stares when I had my NJ tube, which was the feeding tube that goes through my nose. I got a lot of stares then. I've had my share of people staring at me, and here's my opinion on people staring at me. It doesn't bother me. I think it is perfectly natural for somebody to be curious. Like, if it were me, I know that I would be curious as to what's going on with somebody else. Like, we're just naturally drawn to things and people that are different, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I think that it's good to be curious. I think if you're staring very rudely, or you're being very, not obvious, but if you're doing it in a rude manner, I do think that is not right. Like, if you're just genuinely curious, I think there's nothing wrong with that, just as long as you're respectful. So this is my personal opinion, and it's different for everyone because some people aren't very open about their condition and other people are. But I know for me and a lot of people that I know, I honestly would prefer you to ask questions. Like, if you're curious, ask questions like, hey, what's that tube? Or why do you have that extra wheel in the back of your wheelchair? Or hey, why are you in a wheelchair? I like your wheelchair. What's the tube on your face? Like, I personally have nothing wrong with people asking me questions. In fact, if I see people staring at me, I'm like, if they've been staring at me for a long time, sometimes I'll just bring it up. But otherwise, I'm like thinking in my brain, just ask. I'd be more than happy to just explain it. And like I said before, not everyone is open, so I mean, you will occasionally, if you ask, get somebody who might not feel comfortable sharing. I've seen this in the past where a lot of kids, especially when I had my feeding tube in my nose, they would come up to me and be like, what's that tube in your nose? And their parents would be like, stop it right now, and they'd yank their kid away and be like, oh, I'm so sorry, as if their kid like did something wrong. And honestly, I like the way that children handle the situation more than adults, because I think there's nothing wrong with asking questions. I find a lot of times people try to be nice so they don't pay attention to it, but they end up just avoiding you. And I'll see someone like kind of staring at me, and as soon as I even look over in their direction, they're like, I'm not staring at you, but by trying not to stare at you, you actually just get avoided, which is not a good feeling, and it makes the social outings, and it makes just being out awkward sometimes, because you feel like everyone's just tiptoeing around you and like avoiding you. But I like the way that children handle the situation best. Like, when little kids come up to me and they were like, what's that tube in your nose? Or why do you use that thing on your arm? It makes me happy because it gives me a chance to spread awareness and to explain things. And the way that these kids act, they're just curious. They just see another person just like them that has something different, and they're curious about it. And that's all that I am, is I'm just a regular person with a little extra help. And sometimes adults miss that, and they get so caught up in trying not to stare at you that they just end up ignoring you and treating you like you're different. And if you're staring at me, I would like nothing more than to just have you ask a question, because it doesn't make it awkward. It shows me that you care and that you're interested versus just ignoring me. Then again, I mean, you're gonna get people who don't want to be asked questions, and in that case scenario, they're just gonna say, I'm sorry, I don't feel comfortable talking about it. And that's the worst that's gonna happen. But that's totally okay. But oftentimes, I think what you're gonna find is you're gonna find a person who it makes them happy to be like, I'll totally explain this to you. Thank you so much for actually caring and taking the time to ask. So what I really just want to get across is ask questions and don't feel like you have to avoid those people to not stare. It's more rude to avoid that person and like not make eye contact and like kind of stare at them, because trust me, they see you. No matter how inconspicuous you are trying to be, they see you, I promise. So one of the times that this happened to me is I was at the grocery store with my mom, and the person bagging our groceries, as he was handing my mom the bags, he asked me about my feeding tube and my cane. And it shocked me actually, because I'm so used to people ignoring me that I was like, it shocked me, but I was so happy. I was like, oh, I'll totally explain this to you. And he like took the time and was like, oh, I'm like, he was really interested in it. And I left there just smiling, and we got into the car, and I was like, I really want to call and be like, you have a really great employee. Like, he was just super nice. I just really wanted to call because he made my day. And he didn't have to say anything. Like, he could have been like everyone else, but he wasn't. And so I told my mom, and I was just so excited. And so my mom actually was there again another day, and she saw him, and she was like, I just want you to know that you made my daughter's day, because she's so used to everyone just ignoring her and avoiding eye contact. And when you just started asking her questions, like, it made her so happy that somebody cared. So anyways, the point of this is, don't feel like you have to avoid people that are different. Don't feel like you can't stare. Yes, it's rude to just stare at somebody, but it's not rude if you kind of look at them and then you're like, I'm curious, I'm gonna ask them a question. That's okay, and most people are gonna be fine with that. So anyways, that's the point of this video. I decided to make this video after I was doing pool therapy today, and I was in my swimsuit, and you could see my feeding tube, and this little girl was just staring at me, and she was like she almost looked a little scared, which I get. Sometimes little kids, like, they see something coming out of your stomach and their initial reaction is like, oh my gosh, that's so scary, it looks like it hurts. Which it really doesn't, but that's their initial reaction, because most of them have never even seen a feeding tube before. So I was thinking in my head the whole time, like, she was over there and I was thinking in my head, I'm like, just ask me, just ask me. Like, I was just hoping that she would be like, what is that? And then I could explain to her, because she looked a little frightened. So that's why I was like, I'm gonna make a video today. Like, what's my opinion on people staring at me? This was an impulse video that I decided to make, but I hope it helps you, and I hope that next time you see someone that looks a little different and you're curious, you'll ask them about it, because chances are it'll have a good result in the end. So thank you guys so much for watching this impulse video, and give it a like if you agree with me. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!